Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I do. Yes.
Commissioner Autry,
Yes.
Commissioner Devlin,
Present.
and Commissioner Fernandez. I am here. Any special presentations and or announcements? The agenda says no. Public comments, public participation is welcomed and invited at all planning commission meetings regarding issues or matters not on the agenda, but still within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission of Yreka. If your comments concern an item noted on the agenda, please address the Planning Commission when that item is open for public comment. There's additional information regarding public comment that's referenced on the agenda. Is there anybody here for public comment? No. Moving on. Consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and non-controversial and will be enacted by one motion unless any member of the Planning Commission wishes to remove an item for discussion. We have approval of minutes from March 20th, 2024 and May 15th, 2024. Do we have any discussion or motions?
And the regular meeting, May 15th.
I second.
Second. Motion made by Commissioner Devlin, seconded by Commissioner Autry. All in favor, say aye.
I
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, number 6, public hearing. There are none. Number 7, we have old business, which is the proposed film ordinance revision. And planning staff is going to present a review of the city's film ordinance, YMC 5.06, and propose a comprehensive update to the city's current commercial film regulations and procedures. A previous version of the proposed film ordinance was presented to the Planning Commission for review and discussion at the March 20th regular meeting. The proposed film ordinance being presented today is a revision and incorporates comments from the previous discussion. Take it away.
Thank you. I decided to kind of start over with this process. So I have a presentation for tonight to kind of reintroduce the film ordinance update and the general process and address some of the comments that you all made at our 2 meetings ago. So I'm going to skip the staff report tonight and just go to the presentation that is on the screen tonight. So this is our film ordinance update. It says May 15th. It is June 19th. So I forgot to update that for this meeting, but it is June 19th. Let the record show. Next slide, please. So just to start off, I wanted to kind of go over some definitions about what the different kinds of ordinance, resolution, and encroachment permits are. So an ordinance is used when providing a permanent rule of government or conduct. A resolution is used when dealing with temporary or special matters, and an encroachment permit is issued to allow work within a publicly owned property by a government. And I just bring this up because the last time we talked about the film ordinance update, both Commissioner Devlin and Commissioner Fernandez, you asked me to look at other smaller cities' approaches to filming activity, and other cities usually go the route of an encroachment permit, which, as you can see, is it's very limited. It really covers the scope of shutting down a street or a sidewalk, and it doesn't really have a lot of direction as to what filming activity means and kind of these different regulations. So there's just more room for not
Flexibility or-
applying flexibility, but also not necessarily applying a consistent rule to all activity when you go with like an encroachment permit or a resolution, because that's on a case by case basis. And an encroachment permit is really targeted for kind of work, like more public works related things,
Okay.
like to shut down a city street. And or just kind of any city right of way. And then a piece of legislation becomes an ordinance when enacted by a municipal authority. I included the adoption process. It includes a public hearing, a public notice, and 2 readings of the ordinance at 2 separate city council meetings. And we're here tonight because there are considerations for the planning commission on the film ordinance and filming activity and things that apply to land use, including like noise, traffic and circulation, and safety. And I'll go into those things later on in the presentation. And also feel free to interrupt me. I'm viewing this as kind of like a working session. Feel free to ask questions. I'll do my best to answer.
Okay.
Next slide, please. More definitions. A film ordinance establishes regulations for commercial film productions. And the definition of a commercial film production is an activity related to staging or shooting commercial motion pictures, television shows, or still photography. Next slide, please, Cindy. And this is a general summary of what we'll be talking about tonight. So why are we going through this update? There are a couple reasons. It improves the city's current filming permit process. There are quite a few gaps, which I'll get into later. I would actually like to review the edits made to the ordinance later on with you all, so I'll get into the specifics. The update would mitigate adverse effects of commercial film productions, and this is also a good exercise to establish a process with this group on how we update ordinances in general, because we will be updating more in the future, like the zoning ordinance. We're hoping to write a special events ordinance in the future, and we'll be writing a sign ordinance. And so this is a pretty low stakes ordinance of the film one. And it just kind of helps us go through the motion and see what works and what doesn't in terms of the process of updating an ordinance. A summary of the changes include noise, traffic, fees, safety, code violations, state and federal requirements. I've either amended or added sections to address those items. And the benefits of making these changes is that it mitigates land use issues and improves public safety, and it allows the city to recover costs for staff time expended managing the any sort of commercial filming activity within the city. And the role of the Planning Commission is to consider and address potential land use issues associated with commercial film productions, which I'll get into in the next slide, I think. So next slide, please. So the film ordinance update safeguards against the misuse of city property and rights of way. It addresses gaps in the current film ordinance, like I stated, cost recovery. It allows for cost recovery. The current version does not. It addresses more land use issues, and it addresses safety issues. And like I said, it establishes a process for ordinance updates. This is a relatively low ordinance to be updating. The zoning ordinance will be more high stakes. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to show everyone that there are movies that have been filmed in Siskiyou County. Some bigger named ones too. So Peter 5-8 and The Golden Ghost, Hotel Dunsmuir. There are some advertisements that have been filmed in the county. And some of these have been produced by bigger Hollywood names. Drew Barrymore production company produced one of these movies. I forget which one it was. Might have been The Babysitter Wanted one, and then Peter 5-8. Next slide, please. Just some more examples, but we do have some filming activity here, and we want to be prepared for when, you know, a big Hollywood commercial film production comes through and have our regulations in place. So next slide, please. So just to get into the specific changes a bit more, I did incorporate your comment about the business license, Commissioner Devlin. So that's a policy included in the current proposed film ordinance included in your packet. We incorporated a re- a policy that allows the city to impose permit fees and recover staff time expended for any staff used that need to be on set, for example, to kind of monitor any filming activity, things like that. The changes include regulations for land use issues, including noise, traffic, and code violations. For example, areas or buildings that aren't up to code would not be permitted to have any filming activity there. It addresses drones and firearm safety issues required by new legislation passed by Federal Aviation Administration and imposed by the new Labor Code, SB 132. I do have a slide on that Senate bill later on. It came as a result of the Alec Baldwin Rust situation. And another consideration that I haven't really included in the ordinance as proposed includes provisions for pyrotechnics, explosives, or any sort of environmental impacts that you can think of. Next slide, please. So here's a very brief summary on Senate Bill 132. It's effective July 2025. It requires a risk assessment and mitigation plan and a safety advisor and a licensed trained armorer to be on set. And just for some context, someone died on the set of Rust of Alec Baldwin's movies. I'm sure you're all familiar because of a blank was fired. And so this bill is a result of that, just establishing more safety measures for commercial film employees. It regulates the use of firearms and blanks on set, and it prohibits the use of ammunition except in some specific circumstances, and it requires firearm handling trainings. So we've included a requirement that commercial film productions within the city comply with Senate Bill 132 requirements for safety. Next slide, please. So this is the same summary slide I went over before. I just wanted to keep it up while we go through the next part of our discussion. So next, first of all, are there any questions so far? Okay. So I just wanted us to go through kind of in more detail the actual revisions that we made to the ordinance. There it starts on page 18. And I just wanted to go through section by section, just to give you an idea of kind of how I went through this and made edits. So this is chapter 5.06 of the Yreka Municipal Code, commercial film productions, and feel free to stop me at any time with questions or comments. So the first section is purpose. It emphasizes the community's general welfare. And so it states the purpose of this chapter is to allow individuals and film companies to conduct filming activity in the city without unreasonably impacting the general welfare of the residents of the community, as well as facilitating the issuance of filming permits. And then I just deleted some repetitive information. The next section is definitions. It expands the number of words defined, it includes new ones, and it alters some previous definitions to be more specific or more broad as needed. We added a definition for applicant, refined the definition for commercial film production, added definitions for designee, film location, filming activity, filming permit, firearm, what it means to operate, because we did include some regulations around drones. So that word is specifically for drone operation. We define person, unmanned aircraft, aka drone, unmanned aircraft system. Are there any questions about these words or any other ones that you'd like defined? And that can come up later too. Okay, sounds good. The next section, applicability, it just creates a requirement that commercial film productions apply for a filming permit. And at this point, we don't create any of the application documents. We wait until an ordinance is adopted to do that so that we don't, waste our time in case an ordinance is not adopted if there's no interest. Filming activities, that section defines the types of activities that are permitted filming activities. There are the allowable and the exemptions. So entities like news entities, newspapers, news services, broadcasting organizations do not need a filming permit. Productions that are conducted by the city or other governmental agencies would not need to go through the permitting process as outlined here. The filming, videotaping, or other productions by private individuals solely for private use would not be subject to filming the film ordinance or film activity requirements.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
What about drones?
Drones, I'm not totally familiar with those regulations. I would have to do a bit more research. But I know there are very specific laws around filming with drones regulated by the FAA, and drone operators need permits and things like that. But yes, licensed. I meant licensed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Other than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Another question, so.
Yeah.
Said for private, whatever, filming, non-commercial use, what about our photographers that do our little pictures? School graduation. Spots around our city.
That's a good question.
We actually have.
It
quite a
depends
few.
what those photos are used for, I suppose, because a lot of those are still for private use. So, yeah,
This thing exemption, so filming, videotaping, or other productions by private individuals solely for private use are exempted. I mean.
Oh, okay, so the private use being individuals.
mm-hmm.
I mean,
But
I
it's not-
would say
it's
it
not-
falls under that.
It's not gonna regulate the photographer from having. From.
That's a good question though. They would need a business license, but in terms of the filming permit, it would need to fall under the definition of a commercial film production.
somebody goes to Greenhorn and needs a photographer and gets pictures done, they have to have a business license?
I would think, um, oh, I see what you're saying. It's mostly if people are operating their business in the city and like making business transactions and
There's
Yeah.
also a lady who.
or
brings-
doing work. Sorry to interrupt you.
Who brings her Shetland ponies and puts unicorn, horn on their head and takes unicorn pictures with children.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been doing that for a while now
Mm-hmm.
at the park.
Yeah, I don't believe the business license would apply to just, that kind of thing.
We hope our building ordinance wouldn't be so far reaching that it
Right.
would reach and affect those individuals that are just
Yeah.
helping our community.
Right.
Right. Right. And I've seen some ordinances that do have exemptions for like educational purposes. So that's something I can look into and then bring back to our next meeting and just kind of some language around exemptions around, those smaller.
No,
Yeah.
we're just trying to make sure that.
There's just the potential for overreach of the
Yeah.
stuff that you didn't think about.
Right.
Right.
Film.
Mm-hmm.
The spirit is not to affect, our local people taking, like you said, senior pictures is a big thing.
Mm-hmm. I do think senior pictures would still be considered private use.
But there's also Yreka News who took those big, huge drone pictures of that dam.
And that's an exemption.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have some folks that do sports photos, go out to little
Right.
games, take pictures, they sell them back to the families.
Right.
Want to regulate
Yeah.
their.
That's totally understandable. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you pointing out that gap. Yeah, so I'll think about that and how to address that and think about that concern. And then moving on,
Yeah, because filming at Gold Rush too, there's lots of people who film at Gold Rush for various reasons.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And that event was technically city sponsored, so that might have fallen under it being a city kind of filming event. But I don't want to
Yeah.
get ahead of myself. There are always loopholes. Part B, for the use of city property, including the public right-of-way in any city building or city-owned facility, in addition to a film permit, permission by the city shall also be obtained for any filming activity not otherwise exempted under 5.6.030, which we just reviewed, for filming activities that involve special vehicular controls on city streets or unduly obstructs pedestrian movement on public sidewalks. And so this is kind of referencing or alluding to a requirement for a traffic safety plan if they're shutting down city streets in a way that'll significantly impact the community,
That makes sense.
which we require for special events that shut down city streets.
We already do all that, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I deleted the next section because I incorporated it into what I just read. Permits or licenses non-exclusive. This section just aligns the film ordinance with the rest of the municipal code, stating that the provisions of this chapter are intended to augment and be in addition to any other ordinance of the city requiring additional permits or licenses or other fees. Next section, permit the application. This section sets the general application process. So An application for a filming permit shall be filed with the city manager, it's a typo, with the city manager or their designee on a form prescribed and provided by the city manager or their designee. The application shall be accompanied by the information identified in the filming permit application, which I mentioned would be created after the ordinance is adopted. Such an application shall be submitted no later than 2 weeks prior to the date on which such person desires to conduct an activity for which a permit is required. That just gives staff a little more time to actually process the application. 5 days can be a tight turnaround. If council approval is required for the filming activity to occur, a complete application shall be submitted no later than 2 months prior to the filming start date. Council approval would be required no later than 4 weeks prior to the filming start date. So that would give us time to get it on a city council agenda and draft the documents required to present the item to council. And give them time to review it.
What city do you reference?
The cities that I kind of reviewed their ordinances, city of South Pasadena was a major one. I reviewed some of Mount Shasta stuff for their unmanned aircraft system, and it was a while ago. So let me check the staff report. Oh, that's okay. I did list some of the cities that I reviewed. I did look at the city of Arcata, and they have a filming permit application and no ordinance. So I'm not sure what enforcement mechanism they're using through their ordinance. They might have kind of a sentence in there. Oh yeah, and then I think cities of Pasadena, Culver City, Roseville, and Ashland. And I did review Arcata and Mount Shasta's kind of drone ordinance. Happy to review any other ones as well, in addition. Good. Okay. I almost lost my place, but I didn't. So that was the permit application process generally. Any questions so far? Okay. The permit fees section, I'm not gonna go into that at this time, but it does add fee requirements and allows the city to impose fee requirements and the ability to recover costs for any personnel that are needed to manage the event and, for example, be on site at the event or the filming, the set. And those fees are adopted through resolution by city council.
I do have a stupid question. So if it's during a workday and you're already working at the city hall and you need to go out on location, do you get paid more for that? Or does the city get paid extra because they have to send you out, even though you're already working? Because it seems like double dipping to me.
Can you clarify? So like, for example, I personally, it would not affect like that, but it would go into the city's operating fund to cover like we track our staff time across different projects. So for filming, we might have a fund where these fees go into that operating budget, and that would cover I'm actually not sure how it works. That would be a question for our finance director.
I believe what happened is the employee gets paid for the hours that's been,
Right.
and then the city is reimbursed through this film ordinance as far as recovery of staff time, and that money gets allocated back to their or whatever fund they utilize to pay that. So the employee makes the same regardless,
Right.
so.
I know, it just sort of feels like double dipping though. You know what I mean? I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. They pay back the city because the city employee is out of the
Right, so-
office working. Yeah, I get it.
I'm not seeing in the ordinance where it says we're paying for our city staff's time,
Yeah, recovery time.
which item is that?
It's city recovery time.
Um. Yeah, this is specifically for fees. I believe it's addressed later on.
Okay, I know it's there because I read it.
Discussed in the
Right.
presentation.
Well, and I
Mhm.
read it too, and I was like, well, gosh, but I guess it does make sense.
Especially if it's a, you have an employee who is.
Not in the
allocated,
office doing their job,
supposed
yeah.
to be, processing. Applications for other things and yet they're out, and hopefully we would need to have an employee out. Policing.
Yeah.
Unemployed. So I seriously doubt that it's gonna be there.
Right, and yeah, again, the fees and the cost stuff isn't really what we're considering here tonight. But I can get some more information if you're interested on,
No, I
Um,
think I'm clear. about
okay, okay. Yeah, thank you, Amy. Okay, so the next section is the permit issuance and conditions. So this section addresses traffic safety issues, city services, license requirements, and it allows the city to impose other requirements and other fees. So, part,
So,
yeah.
So my comments in this section are gonna be, for item C and item E.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody comes in to get a permit and they meet everything else in this ordinance and we have a designee say, no, I want you to do this, this and this before I issue it. I'm not okay with that. I think if there's gonna be additional requirements for the issuing that those specific requirements are gonna be required to go to the city council for approval and not left to city manager, designee, or somebody else.
I agree.
Okay,
That just gives somebody too much.
mm-hmm.
And we know that the current city manager is very open to progress and.
Well, that
But
would,
a future city manager may
Yeah.
not be, and that's what we dealt with in the past.
yeah, my comments aren't directed at anybody
Yeah.
Yeah.
current, but moving forward. I mean, if I come in with an application and I've done everything and met everything, then somebody says, no, you need to also do this, this and this. And it's gonna cost you this much extra. I'm not gonna be okay with it.
Understood. I am making a note of that comment and I will look into it. Thank you. And that includes additional fees.
Yeah.
Okay, requirements and fees.
Make sure it gets run by the city council for approval.
Okay.
Was that regarding E as well?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
C and E kind of tie together.
Mhm.
Okay. Great. Would you like me to still read through this section or are we good on that?
I'm kind of good on that. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna let you, I only have about 15 more minutes.
Okay, we will fly through this. I think we only have like a couple pages left. I'll try to just summarize. Okay, so the next page, page 22. I've added requirements around parking, street closures, noise, unmanned aircrafts, and safety procedures. So the parking, No person shall park a vehicle on a street or alley adjacent to a business or residential dwelling unit unless the signature from that business or that resident directly impacted by that parking replacement has been obtained. No person shall park a vehicle or place equipment associated with filming activity on any street or alley except in a posted parking space, and the applicant shall post no parking signs as required by the city manager or their designee at least 24 hours prior to the scheduled start time of the filming activity, except at such times which signs must be posted by the police department. Any concerns on parking requirements?
No.
Any concerns on street closures? Noise? Unmanned aircrafts. This is
I think a lot of that is, you'll find is covered by the FAA.
Mhm.
Yeah.
As long as they come in with their
Yeah.
license. If they break the laws at that point,
Yeah.
those are federal
yeah.
penalties, so.
Yeah, great. And that's essentially what this section says. It's you have to be in compliance with FAA. The safety procedures are a reflection of partially SB 132, which I discussed in the slides. So a public safety officer will need to be present for each commercial film production at the expense of the applicant. As written in the code, that's regardless. We can incorporate like anything. Oh, well, this is in the proposed code. So this can all be edited. Whatever's in red, we can edit. We can say, yeah.
I meant the new one that's with the person.
SB
Oh.
132.
I'm not sure if this part specifically is, they have more specific requirements. This is something I refer to and, got from other cities' codes that, is a common
I'm
requirement.
guessing a production company can just say, you're our safety person. It doesn't probably have to be a separate person.
Well, I think it has to be a licensed person.
As written here, it does say public safety officer. Mm-hmm, yeah.
Well, didn't SB 132 say that it also had to be a someone licensed to do this?
So there are requirements in SB 32 around the productions safety people. So there are requirements around that. This is separate. So this would require someone from like a public safety officer, so someone from the city.
I would run by our police chief first.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
we don't have staffing to have somebody come in and sit with a production company. And it seems like an unnecessary requirement if they are fulfilling the rest of the requirements of the permit.
Right.
Noted. Thank you. B, a firearm safety plan shall be required for productions involving firearms. Firearm safety plan requirements shall be determined by their city manager or their designee. Such safety plan shall include those requirements under Labor Code Section 9153A, which is the labor code we discussed in the PowerPoint.
Now, I would say that is where. So, but if it's in the city and in a residential area, I can't imagine that we would have something like that happening here. But it's not.
No,
For commercial film productions involving firearms.
That's where. But
One,
was a very specific incident that shouldn't happen. We all know that. it shouldn't happen.
and having a police officer present probably
Wouldn't have changed that.
Would have changed.
Probably, and it was like,
Oh, yeah, if something happened while public officials were there.
they can.
one sort of example the city attorney mentioned to me on one of our discussions was, for example, if they're filming a scene and there's a firearm involved and someone from the public comes up on the scene and they see some altercation happening, which is staged, but they don't know that it's staged and they pull out their own weapon and try to address the situation. That kind of miscommunication.
Also, you might bring the person in and ask his opinion, like, what does he want?
Mhm.
You know? But not.
I can definitely reach out to the
I
police chief.
agree, that would be good, because going forward, we would know, it's in policy.
As unlikely as it may be that we're going to have this situation.
Yeah, but we're writing policy.
It's good to
so,
talk
yeah.
about. Yeah, address it now. Okay. Commercial film productions involving the discharge of live ammunition or projectiles released from the muzzle of a firearm shall comply with the provisions of Chapter 9.06 of the Yreka Municipal Code, which does have some YPD requirements and YPD authorization. Commercial film productions shall comply with provisions of Part 13 of Division 5 of the California Labor Code. Any questions? The next section addresses code violations, not issuing filming permits for sites where there are outstanding uncorrected code violations. Any
Also,
concerns?
Horror film locations.
Yeah. Potentially.
We can't use it in a slaughterhouse anymore, they took that to the ground.
All right, additional duties of applicants. So it expands kind of protections for the city. The applicant shall be required to retain city personnel and other city services as deemed necessary by city manager or designee for the purpose of protecting, assisting, and regulating the proposed activity at the sole cost and expense of the applicant. A deposit for such services may be required by a city manager or their designee. Any concerns around that? We've kind of been talking about it so far. Is that something you might want to go through council?
Which one?
5.06, the additional duties of applicants, Part A.
I mean, that kind of ties back to those other two.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, there should be a clear path.
Okay. At any time an unsafe condition is observed, the city manager or authorized city personnel may order filming activity to stop until such time as the unsafe condition is corrected, and all persons involved with the filming activity shall immediately comply with those orders.
Perfect.
Okay, but wait, you're saying that at any time an unsafe condition is observed, the city manager, so who is gonna observe it? Is the city manager gonna be there?
Or authorized city personnel.
So,
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
Drop by, you see something crazy going on. you shut it
right.
down.
Yeah.
Got it.
No person shall cause or allow filming of aerial activities. This is regulated by FAA. The applicant shall conduct operations in an orderly fashion with continuous attention to the storage of equipment not in use and the cleanup of trash and debris. The applicant shall be responsible for restoring to the city manager or designee satisfaction any damaged or disrupted area before leaving the film location. If the site is not repaired or restored to the city's satisfaction, the cost of such repair or restoration shall be reimbursed to the city by the applicant. The applicant shall ensure the film location shall be cleaned of trash and debris. Oh, that's repetitive, so I will make a note of that. The city manager may require the applicant to post a refundable performance bond at the time the permit is issued for any reasonably anticipated possible cleanup or restoration costs. So essentially a deposit for filming activity. The next section, insurance and indemnity. There are no material changes to this section proposed. And the last section, the conditions and restrictions section.
Seems like it's repetitive of issuance. ordinance
Mm-hmm.
5.06.0760.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And our last section, post-filming permit approval procedures. This gives the city authority to modify or revoke permits. So the city manager or their designee may require changes in the terms of conditions of an approved filming permit at any time while it is in effect, if needed, to ensure that the activity may continue to operate consistent with the requirements of this section. Revocation, a filming permit may be revoked by the city manager or designee effective immediately for any of the following reasons: the applicant's failure to comply with the conditions of the filming permit, the applicant's failure to comply with the provisions of this chapter, or if the applicant makes any false statement or material misrepresentation of fact relating to a filming permit application. Revocation of a filming permit may be appealed to the city manager and must be made within 15 calendar days after issuance of the notice of revocation from the city manager or their designee.
So the city manager repeal, like, can revoke it, and then the appeal goes to the city manager, like, things like that.
It seems like it should go to city council for appeal. All right, well, we've reached the end. The next section has been incorporated into other sections previous. But I've made note of as many notes as I could. I think I got most of them, hopefully all of them. But any final thoughts?
Spent a lot of time on
Thank you. It was kind of fun. I've never done a film ordinance update, so I'm learning too. Do some research. Yeah. All right. Well, so in terms of next steps, would you like me to incorporate these comments and then come back at a future meeting and review those comments with you?
That seems like
Or is it possible to approve it with those changes, the oversight changes?
Yeah, it's possible.
I mean, if you send it to us, we'll read it so we can come here prepared.
Mhm.
And maybe we can talk about any issues we have with what's proposed. And
Well, my question is, can we send it to city council with the changes?
I think we should review them
We
first.
should review it again.
Okay.
At least have an opportunity. We don't need to read through it like we did, but
Yeah, either of those are possible.
Okay.
Oh, public comment.
Thank you.
Yeah, Lorenzo Love. I have a booth for sidewalk sales at events like Gold Rush Days. And it's less than a micro enterprise. It's a nano enterprise. But oftentimes I video my booth and the merchandise I sell. And then I put that on YouTube. And then from YouTube, I link to my website, to Facebook, to other places. It's commercial in nature because it's promoting my business. And I'm not the only one that does that. Many people do that. If you're going to require a filming permit for that, you're effectively prohibiting it.
Really falls in line with my concerns about express actually
Yeah.
before the meeting started. And I think again, the spirit of this ordinance is for filming that is intrusive and obstructive to the general happenings of our city. And so I do think that if there's a way to incorporate some wording so that, because as you said, you're putting it on your own social media, it's for your own
commercial use.
It is, you are, I'm just thinking there has to be a different word because you are promoting your own self.
Yeah,
It's a promotion, you're promoting, it's not commercial necessarily, I would say.
it's promoting a business.
And so I think that is important to clarify.
I will say that the ordinance definition of commercial film production clarifies that it's all activities attendant to staging or shooting commercial motion pictures, television shows or programs, or still photography, which utilizes city property so as to interfere with the normal use thereof by the general public or by the city, or otherwise requiring special utilization of city personnel. So interfere with the normal
So
use.
somebody could film a national commercial as long as they didn't interfere with anything.
I think that we're getting into a back and forth discussion.
Yeah, which, well, what I'm worried about is somebody in the future in City Hall nitpicking and trying to control what's going on. Like, you mentioned that problem, people coming up with new things which require new fees.
Actually, would, this because it is a
What if it's not interfering with anything?
complex.
You could do man on the street interviews for like the Daily Show or something like that.
And I think that we need to not get into not nitpick our own self. you
Well-
know, and talk about interfering because the spirit of this, that would encompass a national.
Yeah.
Commercial, it really would, like, it would make.
Well, what I'm worried about it encompassing me and people like me. And if, depending how somebody in the future reads this, they may be over controlling and decide, no,
I understand, so perhaps we, do include, some word about, personal promotion of their on social media.
yeah,
Does not obstruct, you know.
yeah. Okay,
Something like that, but, and, you know, we'll let planning staff decide what's.
Yeah.
How that could be incorporated, and if there are any, you know, ordinances that address that, because there should be something.
oh, and another thing, you worry about firearms. Bows and arrows, crossbows, hand grenades, harpoon guns.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you might want to include something about dangerous weapons, weapons with potential lethal effects, something like that.
All right, so how would you like to proceed?
It's appropriate. I believe we reviewed their revised proposed film ordinance and provided direction to staff, so. At a meeting in the future, not proposed changes.
Yeah, that's the wishes of the commission. Can definitely bring it back to our next meeting and review I can incorporate those changes.
We don't
Yeah.
need a motion to do that.
I don't think so.
So now we're on number 8, new business, and there is none, future planning items.
Can I have a
Oh,
comment?
yes, I guess you can.
Okay. So I've been approached by some of the contractors in town working on some of our projects, and this has affected me when I try to move forward with a project, but our city does not have anything, any ordinance or any provision to provide temporary water for our contractors on their sites, which every county and city I've ever been to issues temporary water meters that you attach to the closest fire hydrant so that, you know, these projects, they can get out there, get water on their project and keep the dust down. Right now, they're having to run water trucks and fill up and, you know, traverse the city carrying water. But I believe the only person in charge or the decision maker on what this policy is or procedure for the city is our public works director. And I think the city manager, city council should be aware that our contractors, as they get going with these projects, should be able to issue a temporary water meter. And I believe the public works director's concern was that they, at some point, somebody damaged a hydrant. But I know the contractors are more than capable of putting up a bond to get that meter and be responsible for any damage that they would cause to city property. But it needs to be addressed and it needs to be addressed quickly. We shouldn't be running our city like this.
Did you call the mayor?
Not yet.
Call him.
All right.
If I may say something about that. The city manager and Matt Bray actually discussed that today. So they have been discussing the fire hydrant issue, the hydrant issue.
I was told by the person who brought that in that Matt shut the door. He said, absolutely, this is my policy because we've had damage in the past.
Oh, okay. I don't know about that. I just know in our
So
meeting
that's
this
what-
morning.
That's what has been told to me.
Okay.
But I think our city needs to have a way to
Right.
bond or provide for that temporary water. Instead of destroying our streets with 50,000-pound water trucks driving around.
Right. I don't know anything about that. I just know that that was discussed in our meeting this morning between
Okay.
those two.
Yeah, I think it's gonna come back to you.
Okay.
So anyway, just wanted to make that public.
Are you planning to talk directly to the city manager?
I will call, yeah, I mean, I'll call our mayor and city council members and talk to our city manager, but I believe strongly we have to provide resources for our contractors trying to get the work done here in town.
I just want to make sure that she knows what her direction is. So you're to talk to them.
I will talk to them.
Oh, any other new business? Number 9, future planning items. Do we have any items to discuss?
Mm.
Besides the Fillmore net.
Not at this time.
And so we are going to adjourn and our next meeting is July 17th at 6.
Thank you.